Honestly, I don't really understand what about me, like, warrants being stalked, because I don't do much, so I feel like I'm, like, a very boring stalk victim. So today's video is going to be a little bit different than, like, my current content, in the sense that it's going to be a story time video. I did tell this story before, when I tried to do YouTube the first time, back in 2018, but I wasn't very good at speaking. I'm not very good at speaking now, but I want to, like, because that video is privated, I want to reiterate the story and, like, tell it now, because, like, more stuff has happened, actually, since I told it last time anyway, so I might as well. So, actually, the crazy thing is that I'm in my early 20s and I've already been stalked multiple times. Like, this is just a story about one of my stalkers, like, the most intense one that did it for the longest time. Actually, like, most of the women that I know have been stalked at least once in their life, and that's kind of crazy. So this particular one started in 2016. My best friends and I, every single Friday, would go to an open mic with like, a bunch of our friends and, like, a bunch of the people that we knew who did, like, music stuff. Just, like, the local people our age that did music, or were, like, friends with the people that did music. I'm over-explaining, not the point. And every single Friday it was, like, the same people there, like, the same group of people, and we all got to know each other pretty well because it was, like, always the same people, and we all went every single week. Except one Friday, after, like, we'd already been going for, like, multiple months, one Friday this kid that none of us had ever seen before in our entire lives randomly showed up, which was weird because, again, it was, like, always the same people, so it was kind of, like, it just felt weird for someone else to be there. And do you ever just meet somebody and instantly get a bad vibe? Like, they're not doing anything outwardly, like, weird or off-putting. You just, like, get a real bad vibe, like a gut feeling. That's what I was getting here. Like, this kid's vibe was just, like, way, way off. And I could, like, tell that other people felt the same way. He hadn't done anything, like, super weird yet. It was just, like, weird, off-putting vibes. On top of the super negative, off-putting vibes, he gave the kind of energy of the kids that would, like, Naruto run down the hallway in 6th grade and bark at people for fun. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but an interesting vibe to put off, no less. He didn't do anything super duper creepy right away, but we did keep catching him, like, staring at us, like, super intently. Intently? That's a word, right? Intensely? Either way, he was staring at us. He wasn't speaking to us, he was just staring at us, which, like, was fine. Well, not fine. Don't just stare at people, but it was, like, fine. He wasn't talking to us. We didn't really expect him to, but, like, to not speak to us and then also stare at us intently, weird, right? Weird vibe. My boyfriend at the time also came to these open mics with us, and he, like, grew up in a dance studio and, like, really liked to, like, break dance and stuff, and everybody knew that about him. It was kind of, like, what he was known for, and so a bunch of the people that went there who were his friends, like, would convince him to breakdance at these open mics, and so he was doing that. And then this kid, the soon-to-be stalker kid, decided to join in, which, like, would have been fine, except he just kept, like, getting in the way and taking up all the space. And what he was doing wasn't really breakdancing so much as it was flailing, which, again, is fine. I am not judging for that. But he kept getting in the way, and he also still hadn't really spoken to anyone there, so, like, his first interaction with most of these people was just, like, this instance. And my best friend and I were, like, sitting in a doorway, like, underneath a door frame, watching, like, the breakdancing go down, and this kid, still hadn't spoken to us, by the way, turns to us, sprints full speed in our direction, jumps up, grabs the door frame above our head, and starts doing pull-ups directly above our head. So obviously we move, because I don't know about you, but I don't really want, like, a 6-foot tall kid falling on my head. So we move, right? We're out of there very, very quickly. Move all the way across the room. Still don't speak to him. Still hasn't said a word to us, by the way. But after the weird pull-up incident, he started doing this thing where he would, like, walk really close to us, and then just, like, when he got super close, would just, like, abruptly turn and go the other direction. And still not speak. Just, like, walk really close and then abruptly turn away. He was not feeding the weird and off-putting allegations, I fear. And that was all in the span of one Friday. And that was the first time any of us had ever seen this kid. Fast forward, next Friday. Again, we go to open mic like we do every Friday. My best friend and I got there like a little bit earlier than everyone else because open mic technically started at 7, but most people wouldn't show up till like 7:30. So when we got there was only like 3 people there, and he was unfortunately one of them. We opened the door. The first thing that we see is this kid standing in the center of the room facing the door, just standing completely still and expressionless, just standing there. And we step inside. The second the door clicks behind us, this kid like snaps out of whatever fucking weird ass trance he's in and makes a beeline for us immediately. And he like is suddenly holding these like 2 bags of candy, and he walks up to us, stops like a foot in front of us and goes, "Would you like some candy?" Just like rapid fires the words out of his mouth, still kind of expressionless, just staring at us, holding the bags of candy out. Obviously we say no, because the bags of candy are open, and that's suspicious. Like, you know not to accept candy from strangers. Don't accept food that's open from strangers, especially. We've just met this kid, and all he's ever been to us is weird and off-putting. So no, we don't want any. We don't say any of that. We just politely are like, "Oh, no, thank you." And this kid loses his goddamn mind immediately. Like, the second the words "no, thank you" escape our mouths, this kid is like, gone. He's lost it. He throws the bags of candy down onto a nearby table and starts screaming. He's yelling and like stomping around the room and flailing. He's like, "I bought this candy to share with you guys, and you don't even fucking want it." And the other 2 people that are there obviously notice, and they're clearly uncomfortable and like worried. So my friend and I make the logical decision to leave until more people come there, because we're not going to stand here and get yelled at by this kid when there's like barely anyone even in there. Like, we're out of there. We turn around, leave. And the driveway parking lot thing for the building that open mic is in is like kind of long, like from the building to the street. It's like kind of a long stretch. We get to like almost the bottom, like so we're practically to the sidewalk, and I look over my shoulder and guess who's exiting the building? Right behind us. Yeah. Stalker. Soon to be stalker, but stalker nonetheless. Once again, it is nighttime. It's dark. And we live in kind of like a small town where most things close at like 5 p.m. and thus most people are not out past like 5 p.m., especially in the winter, which it was. So it's nighttime, dark. There's not a lot of people out. Once we see a kid behind us, we like speed up a little bit, and we notice that like 2 buildings down in like kind of a little alley thing, some of our friends are like standing there having a conversation. So we beeline for them instantly to try and get away from him without making it super obvious that that's what we're doing. We like I said, it's kind of like in a little alley between 2 buildings, so we're talking to them for like, I don't know, like 7 minutes in that alley, and then we're like, the coast is probably clear, we're gonna go. We were planning on going to Walgreens because my friend needed to buy something, so that's where we were headed next. So we leave the little alley that our friends are in, and across from the building that we were just like partially behind is like a parking lot to a bar, and when we step out, we notice that this kid is standing in the parking lot of the bar, staring at where we were coming out of, just like staring. Again, expressionless and creepy. At this point, we're flabbergasted. Absolutely flabbergasted. But before we can even react or do anything, he takes off sprinting. Quicker than I've ever seen anyone take off sprinting in the opposite direction. So we're like, okay, well, at least it was the opposite direction. We're free. So we start heading down the sidewalk to go to Walgreens like we had planned. We get to the bottom of this hill, and we go to turn this way to go where we wanted to go. And there's like a street to cross. We start crossing that street, but the second we like turn our bodies to do so, he is sprinting in our direction. Like directly at us, down the center of the sidewalk. Gobsmacked is the only way that I can describe how we felt in this moment. Absolutely gobsmacked. So like I said, we were crossing this way. He's sprinting this way. The only other way to go is this way, because it was like a 2-way intersection. So we turn on our heels as quickly as we motherfucking can and go the other direction. We get to Walgreens as quickly as humanly possible. Like, we weren't sprinting, obviously, but we were walking very, very fast. We spent like a half an hour in Walgreens, maybe, just like looking around and grabbing shit. And by the time we got out, we had like kind of forgotten about him. Not like forgotten about him completely, but like the shock of all of it had kind of worn off. We had been distracted sufficiently. But then, the second we step out of Walgreens and turn the corner around the building, who is standing in the parking lot across the street? Bet you can guess. Once again, staring at us, expressionless, just standing completely still. And I half expect him to take off sprinting again, because, you know, him taking off sprinting seems to be a theme here. But he doesn't. He stays completely still, standing in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and we just walk by. He watches us walk by. We do not look back and decide we're just going to go right back to open mic. We don't look over our shoulders. We do not look back at all. We just head straight for open mic, which is back up the hill. And like I said, he stayed still the entire time we walked by him, so we kind of half assumed that he maybe was still standing in the parking lot. But then, by the time we get to open mic, he is already in the open mic parking lot. Which means he had to have taken shortcuts behind buildings and, again, full sprinted there to get there before us. Because we fully walked by him, so he had to have sprinted, like, behind the Dunkin' Donuts and up the hill. Like, that's crazy. Keep in mind, once again, this is only the second time we've ever seen this kid in our whole lives. Well, not the second time, because we've seen him multiple times in this one night, but the second night that we'd ever seen this kid. I still didn't even know his name at this point. He spent the entire rest of this open mic sat in the corner by himself, picking scabs off of his arm and eating them, and then licking the blood off of his arm. No words. No words. Then comes next Friday, again, open mic, and it's like full. Like everyone who usually goes is there. Because some Fridays, like, some people didn't come. It was, like, always the same people, but sometimes, like, certain of those people didn't come. But this time, like, everyone who ever went was there. It was completely full. And my best friend and I were, like, sitting on a couch, and he's there, obviously. And he's doing the same shit. He's, like, walking really close to us and then turning around. Walking really close to us, turning around. And he's, like, mumbling under his breath the whole time, but we can't really hear what he's saying because he's mumbling, and it's pretty quiet. And he doesn't ever, like, stay close to us long enough for us to really hear what he's saying. Until one time he walks super duper close to us and I can hear him mumbling, so I like try and hear what he says, and as he passes us, this time he doesn't like immediately turn around, he like goes past us completely, and I hear him mumble, "I want to bash your fucking brains in." Flattered, really, I am. Very flattering of you to say. So we're horrified. My boyfriend at the time is also there. So we go find him, explain to him the situation. Obviously he's pissed, and he like sticks close by to us the rest of the night just to like keep an eye on it and like make sure that he's not coming close to us. And he doesn't. So we kind of ignore him for the rest of the night. I feel like I have a bodyguard. I feel fine. Like, he doesn't really come close to us for the rest of the night after that. And while it was scary, I'm not super worried about it yet. I know I probably should have been. I was like scared, but as long as he was staying away from us, I was like, I felt okay enough to still be there. You know what I mean? And I'm also pretty sure that night he left. Like halfway through, like he didn't stay the whole time. So then the next Friday, again, my best friend and I are like walking around town before open mic, and we're like running errands, getting coffee, just doing like little things here and there, and he's popping up everywhere. Like, he's around every fucking turn. He'll randomly be behind us and then randomly be in front of us and walk really slowly like he's waiting for us to catch up. I swear to God, he was around every fucking turn that day. It was insane. Like, he was in every fucking parking lot, every alley. He was just popping out of every fucking crevice. I swear to God, I felt like I was being haunted by this motherfucker. Like, it was insane. And then, like, 2 days later, my best friend and I were, like, in a Dunkin' Donuts. We were sitting in the Dunkin' Donuts drinking our coffees at a table because it was, like, the dead of winter and we didn't want to carry around our iced coffees. So we're sitting at a table, and the tables are, like, surrounded by windows. And we see him walk by the window once, walk back again, walk back a third time, and then come in. And he's, like, already holding a small, hot Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So he'd already been in Dunkin' Donuts. And then where we're sitting at the table that's, like, in the corner against the windows. And then there's a table in the middle and then a table in the other corner by the bathroom. But they're all, like, a foot from each other. Like, they're all still pretty close together. And when he comes in, he makes a beeline for the table. Not the middle table, but the other corner table. And he, like, glances at us and then, like, keeps his head down and pretends to, like, not look at us or not notice us. He, like, keeps his head down, stares at his tiny coffee while he sits at the table, mumbles to himself the whole time, then abruptly stands up, leaves his coffee on the table, sprints out the door. Good talk. Have fun. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, sir, I don't think you and I are on the same page here. Unfortunately. And then for the next few weeks, we again just, like, see him all over town. Like, he's just everywhere that we go, randomly. Again, it's not a big town, but he really was just, like, everywhere we fucking went. For weeks, like, weeks on end, we would just see him fucking everywhere. It got so fucking creepy and unsettling that, like, my brother lived closer to Dunkin' Donuts and open mic than I did, so if we were, like, walking from either of those places and it was, like, scary and we saw him, we would run to my brother's house and make my brother walk us home because we didn't want to be alone with this kid just, like, fucking everywhere because he was getting that fucking creepy. And then, 2 weeks later, this kid coincidentally befriends my next door neighbor. Now, the weirder part of this being that my next door neighbor was, like, 2 years younger than me, and this kid was, like, a year older than me. I was, like, 16, which means this girl was, like, 14 or 13, and he was, like, 17. So why are you befriending a, like, preteen girl? I don't fucking know. Weird. Weird fucking behavior. And a preteen girl that just so happens to be my next door neighbor when you've been fucking terrorizing me. Great. So now, he's on the street that I live on all the fucking time. Right next door to where I fucking live. Just all the fucking time. And the apartment that I lived in at the time had, like, a giant bay window, and right in front of the bay window was, like, a line of trees. And he would just stand in the fucking line of trees and stare at the bay window. And then when my brother would go outside to confront him, he would sprint into the trees. Motherfucker loved to sprint. Loved to sprint. And one time, 2 of my other friends were at a shop that was, like, right up the street from my house, where you could, like, see my house from that shop, and they saw him, like, standing in the line of trees, so they came walking down the sidewalk to, like, make sure everything was okay. And again, motherfucker takes off sprinting, so they came, like, to my house and were like, hey, Anna, that kid was in your fucking trees again. And I'm like, awesome, fantastic, wonderful. And it got more consistent, like, he was doing this, like, multiple times a week, and it just kept getting more and more, like, frequent. So my boyfriend at the time obviously wanted to confront him, so he, like, went looking for him, and he caught up with him one time, and he asked him, why the fuck are you doing this to my girlfriend? And you will never fucking believe what this kid said. He smiled, looked my boyfriend dead in the eyes, and said, because it's fun. What kind of sick, twisted motherfucker stalks and terrorizes someone for fun? Goofy behavior. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Unhinged in the worst sense of the word. They were, like, standing on a sidewalk that was, like, higher than the road, so my boyfriend, like, picked him up by his shirt and, like, dropped him off the sidewalk. I don't really know what else happened in that interaction because I wasn't there. I know he didn't hit him or anything. And before you ask, why haven't you gone to the police? This is why. This next part of the story, this is why. Because we did. We did fucking go to the police, and the police said, oh, that kid? You're just gonna have to try and be careful. That kid wasn't dealt a full deck of cards. Firstly, what the fuck does that mean? Secondly, that is not helpful in any way, shape, or form. Actually, as it turns out, when he tries to attack me, I'll remember that. Like, what the fuck do you want me to do with that information? I can't protect myself with he wasn't dealt a full deck of cards. Like, what do you think I'm not trying to be careful? Obviously I'm trying to be careful. This kid's showing up beside my fucking house. Like, I don't... So that's why we didn't go to the fucking cops, because, well, we did, and they didn't help at fucking all. They were useless. And then about a year into this happening, like, this kid had been doing this consistently for a year. My house burnt down in 2016, so we had to move house, obviously. And when we did that, the one silver lining to that happening is my thought process was, well, this kid doesn't know I fucking live now. And I was ecstatic. I was like, at least this motherfucker, although he can, like, run into me in town, he can't stand outside my fucking house anymore. Thank fucking God. And one of my coworkers at the time was, like, friends with my upstairs neighbor, and we had just gotten into talking about my stalker at one point, and she mentioned that the kid that lived above me hated my stalker. And I was like, thank fucking God. Wonderful. But then, 2 weeks fucking later, suddenly my upstairs neighbor and stalker boy are best friends. What happened to fucking hating him? You were supposed to be with me on this one. Like, what the fuck was that? Not that my upstairs neighbor had any idea. Not their fault, but what the fuck? What the fuck? So now, the upstairs neighbor and stalker boy are suddenly BFFs. He knows where I live. Because while hanging out with my neighbor, he sees me outside and sees me going in and out of my apartment. Fantastic. Now, I worked at a grocery store at the time, and this kid would come in half an hour before closing at 9:30 fucking p.m. and just stand there. Not fucking buy anything, just stand in the store for like 10 minutes at a time. What the fuck? Who the fuck just hangs out in a grocery store for fun at 9:30 at night? Weird behavior, sir. Weird fucking behavior. Also, I forgot to mention, we found out like halfway through the first year of this happening that this kid did not even fucking live in this town. He lived like 2 towns over and would get dropped off in our town and just left there all day and then like picked up at the end of the day, I think. So that makes us like running into him places a little bit weirder, because why the fuck? Why are you here? And one time when I was at work at the grocery store that I worked at the time, so basically the way the registers were set up is the registers were in a line right here and the produce section was right here. So if you were standing in the produce section, you could see most of the registers. And there was this one day, the store was really fucking busy, like packed. Like most registers had a fucking line, like there was a lot of fucking people in the store. And he just stood in the produce section for literally 10 minutes, standing completely still, expressionless, staring at me at my register while I was trying to do my fucking job. And then another time, that store had like a coffee grinder, so you could like bring in like coffee beans or like buy coffee beans and grind them in store. So this one time, he comes in with coffee beans that he brought from home, and keep in mind there are 3 other registers open, and mine was the only register with a line. And this kid waits in my fucking line with the coffee beans that he brought from home to ask me if he can grind them here, which, yes, everybody knows, like there's a sign by the coffee grinder that says that you can do that. Like it's like a well-known thing. Like you didn't have to wait in my line to ask me. And if you needed to ask somebody, you could have asked one of the other 3 cashiers whose registers were completely open. Like that was just like not necessary, sir, I fear. And then after he grinds them, he waits in my line again just to inform me that he ground the beans. It's like a free service. You didn't have to wait in my line to tell me that you did it. All I said, I just like looked at him and went, okay, and then he left. Good heavens. And then one time I was walking to my sister's house, and I was like walking down the sidewalk, and he was walking up the other direction, and he saw me, stopped in the middle of the sidewalk so that I'd have to step into the road to get around him if I wanted to keep going the direction that I was going. Like, why? What are you gaining from doing that? Like, what? Like, yeah, I would rather get in the road and risk being hit by a car than walk anywhere near you. And when I worked at that grocery store, I would usually walk home because I lived really close to it. Like, it was literally like a 2-minute walk. So I would walk home, and the store closed at like 10 p.m. So I was walking home pretty late at night, and multiple times that I walked home, he would be standing by a tree in front of my house. Like, just fucking standing there in the dark. Like, if that's not fucking creepy, I don't really know what is. And another time, I was walking probably to like fucking Dunkin' Donuts or something, and I was walking, and I saw him on the other side of the street. So like, I was on this side of the street, he was on this side, he was going this way, and I was going that way. And he sprinted from his side of the street to my side, just like directly in front of me, and like kept going like that way, like into like parking lots and shit. And I actually managed to get that on video, and I must still have the video somewhere. If I can find the video, I'll put it in, because I don't think his face is in it, so I will fucking put it in, because it was so fucking bizarre. Like, so fucking bizarre. And then I got a new job at a different store, like further away from my house, and then he, like 3 weeks into me having that job, he randomly started doing parkour in their fucking parking lot, like in the parking lot of the new job. Like, just parkour, like off of the stairs and the porch. Not well, mind you, like not cool parkour. He would just like run and jump and kick off of walls and the stairs and the porch, and it was just a lot, but not good. And then he started doing the same fucking shit he did at my old job, where he would just come in and like not fucking buy anything and just stand there. And then he started asking to use our phone, and it was just like real weird. Like, he wasn't buying anything, he was just like coming in, using our phone, standing around, being fucking weird. I don't really know why nobody ever told him he wasn't fucking allowed in anymore, but I didn't like have the authority to do that. They did, however, let me start hiding when he came in, because they were like, well, he's clearly fucking staring at you, so you can go hide upstairs when he comes in. So I started doing that, and when I started doing that, he started coming in less. Shocking. Very shocking. Also, mind you, at this point in the story, I've like fast forwarded through a lot of stuff, a lot of the little things, and so this has been like over the span of like a bunch of years that he just consistently did a lot of like the smaller things. So basically, the first open mic instance happened in 2015, and at this point in the story, we're at like 2019, 2020 area. And at this point, he's still like popping up random places in town. He's not really hanging out with my upstairs neighbor anymore, which is good, but I'm still seeing him all over the place. So it's like really like diminished, and I personally thought that it had gotten a lot better in the sense that like a lot of the bigger incidents weren't happening. It was just like the little ones. Like I'd see him all over town, and I'd see him like he'd come into my job. So like, while still not ideal, a lot less scary than most of the shit that had been happening. You take what you can get, you know what I mean? And then one day it just like kind of stopped. Like I'd still see him every now and again, but like it wasn't consistent at all. It was like the lack of consistency made it to where sometimes I forgot he existed, which was really nice because for years and years he was literally terrorizing me, and forgetting he existed was impossible. But at that point, I literally was forgetting he existed at least every few weeks, which was really nice. And I had kind of thought that it had like stopped, and then one day I opened Facebook, and my cousin that lived like 2 towns over posted that they were in a relationship, and guess who the fuck they were in a relationship with? Yeah, he was just dating my fucking cousin. Real bizarre. Real fucking bizarre. And then I moved away, like 2 hours away, so I never saw him and never like heard anything about him, and it was great, and I did forget he existed, but really recently I moved close by again. So I'm hoping that I continue to not see him. Maybe he moved. That would be really ideal. But that's pretty much it. I think that's like the end of the story. I think like consistently most of the stalking occurred from 2015 to 2019. It was so fucking scary, and like I said, the cops literally did nothing about it. Like I had to like recruit people in my day-to-day life to like help me feel safe because the police just didn't fucking do anything, which was like awesome. Cheers to them. I was like telling as many people as I could about like all of this just in case something happened to me because the police weren't fucking doing anything. So I wanted like as many people to know what was going on as possible. So like if he did do something to me, that like people would know who did it, you know? But yeah, I think that concludes the story. I'm like sweaty just like talking about it, and I'm like heated. But yeah, so that was my story time about my terrible, creepy fucking stalker. I'm sure I have other story times if you want these kind of videos again. If not, I totally get that too. But either way, I'll be back next Monday. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that none of you have been stalked. That was a weird thing to say. Anyway, I will see you all next Monday.